My wife, when I want to visit her.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ron. We
Yes.
transferred her to intensive care unit.
yeah.
She got suddenly turned for the worse.
They come through our doors vulnerable, bewildered, and often with very different ideas about medical care and treatment.
Can you believe that? That poor little boy. His parents just refused treatment, claimed that disabilities are a blessing from their ancestors.
Ethnic minorities make up 33% of the U.S. population. By 2050, they'll be the majority. Research shows these communities receive lower quality health care, suffer worse health outcomes, and have higher rates of illness, errors, and premature death. They're depending on us, and we let them down when we think our way of providing health care is the only way. How do we give them the quality care they deserve? Health care providers who are sensitive to cultural and religious beliefs, particularly around health and illness, provide patient-centered care. It's called cultural competency, and it's a regulation in hospitals across the country.
What is cultural competence? In simple terms, it's medicine at its best, patient-centered care. Our relationship with the person, the human being, is our primary focus, and their values and beliefs guide our treatment plans.
No matter what a patient's cultural background, we're all people, and people want to be respected and heard. We want to have some say in medical decisions that affect us personally. But what happens when patients don't understand or agree with what we're prescribing or ordering and fail to tell us? What if they prefer alternative healing methods, such as folk medications, herbs, or even shamans or witch doctors? Mrs. Wong didn't hear the doctor explain why and when the medication must be taken or what could happen if she missed a dose. She didn't listen on purpose. She shut down, and he didn't know it until it was too late. In her culture, they believe verbal statements can actually cause the event to happen. What if our treatment goes against their cultural or religious beliefs? During a 36-hour labor, this Filipino mother suffered severe dehydration because she didn't sip the ice water or suck on her ice chips. In her culture, birth is a cold condition. It depletes the body of heat, and only warm liquids must be taken. What if patients don't trust us because of past injustices and beliefs about racism? This American Indian refused to sign the necessary treatment consent form. No one took the time to ask why, establish a rapport, or alleviate his fears. And he never returned for life-saving treatment. If patients know we respect them as people, they're more likely to trust us and follow through with prescribed therapies and treatments. They're more likely to tell us what they need, when they need it.
Think about this. Are you aware of your own cultural beliefs and expectations? This awareness is important in helping us understand how cultural values affect our thinking, the way we communicate, and how we behave.
When you're sick and vulnerable, what kinds of treatment do you expect? What do you need to get well? Do you expect your caregivers to include you as part of the healthcare team? Do you expect their care to be patient-centered, to look to you, the patient, for critical information? What about your family? Do you want them involved in your care, or do you prefer privacy? When a loved one dies, what religious practices help you let go? In patient-centered care, all of this is considered. When we aren't aware of our own cultural norms, it's easy to assume all patients think and act the same way we do. 10-month-old Lou can't hold a spoon or feed herself. You might incorrectly assume it's a motor delay. Or you might know that in Asian cultures, teaching a baby to self-feed with a spoon is not common practice. This mother is ignoring her newborn. Do you assume she's negligent and call social services? If you ask, you might find that in her culture, new mothers do not want to call attention to the newborn, believing it can attract spirits that will steal the infant, causing premature death. When you're critical of another person's values or beliefs, when you think your way is best, these are your personal biases or prejudices. All humans have biases. It's natural. It's the way we categorize information quickly. We make assumptions based on personal values, beliefs, and experiences. In fact, most cultural groups regard their own culture as the best, the most moral, and most correct way of living.
The goal is to train yourself to notice your biases and prejudices and how your judgments can lead to communication breakdowns. Start by paying attention to that self-talk, that little voice in your head that goes on all the time.
When you first meet your patient, what's your first reaction? Do you like her instantly and feel an immediate rapport? Or do you make snap decisions about who she is and what she needs or wants?
This man bothers me. I just don't think he's telling the truth about how this happened.
He's lived here for 10 years and he still doesn't speak English? People who don't care enough to learn our language shouldn't be allowed in our country.
If she were a good mother, she'd have called the doctor immediately instead of thinking some healer could take a fever down.
When you catch yourself thinking thoughts that jeopardize patient-provider communication, stop. Observe your personal reactions to what may seem a new or unfamiliar cultural practice to you. Avoid the natural tendency to think your way is best. Focus on the individual. That's patient-centered care. Ask yourself how you'd feel if the tables were turned, if you were the patient and he was the caregiver. When you walk into a patient room, what's your goal? Is it to connect with the person and build a relationship of trust by demonstrating that you care? Remember, you want this person to be part of the healthcare team. These are people just like you and me, regardless of our obvious differences. Information is needed for patient care. Don't forget what you know, what you've been doing all along. The basics of a thorough patient assessment.
The best way to understand your patient's point of view is to ask questions and explore their background so you can give them the quality care they deserve.
Ask about proficiency with English and what their country of origin is. If a patient needs information in a language other than English, make sure interpreter services are available before you begin. Let her know you're interested in her cultural and religious beliefs so you can provide the best possible patient-centered care. Notice your patient's thoughts about her disease. Her body language and her communication style reflect her cultural roots. Patient assessment tools can help you explore central beliefs about health, illness, and illness prevention. Use the acronym ETHNIC to help you remember critical questions. E, explanation of illness. Ask the patient for an explanation of the illness. For instance, you could ask, what do you think caused your problem? What is the most troubling aspect of the illness? How long do you think it will last? Listen for the patient's perception of the problem. T, treatments tried or expected to try. Find out about other treatments she's using or treatment she's tried. Ask about herbal remedies she may be taking, since some herbs can counteract prescription medications. Ask what she hopes to receive from this treatment. H, healers seen. What about traditional healers who've been consulted? You may believe that disease is caused by bacteria or viruses, but some cultures believe disease is a form of punishment or a loss of soul or due to curses. Ask questions such as, many of my patients from your country believe in alternative treatment. Is this true for you? N, negotiate options. Work with patients to negotiate strategies that meet their needs. The goal is to create a dialogue, a sharing of information, Explain your perception of the problem and the suggested treatment. Acknowledge the similarities and differences between your perceptions and work toward mutually acceptable options. You might ask, what would interfere with your adherence to treatment recommendations? Then, after you get an answer, you might add, now let me explain why I think it's important to also consider this type of treatment. Ask for feedback. Ask the patient to repeat what he or she thinks is expected. Be cautious about explaining a negative prognosis or possible side effects or complications. Some cultures would prefer not to know, even though you may think it's best to know all possible options. I. Interventions. Whenever possible, incorporate cultural folk medications and folk beliefs into the treatment. Interventions may include medications, alternative treatments, and psychosocial support. C. Collaborate. Collaborate with the patient, family members, and other traditional healers. Ask about the patient's support group. Many cultures expect to involve the immediate or extended family in treatment. For instance, East Indian relatives may want to remain with the patient and take over activities of daily living, such as feeding and bathing. Generally, family members are consulted before decisions are made. In these cases, respect patient wishes. Find out about the client populations you serve. Educational materials, such as culture tools, can give you information about belief practices, nutritional preferences, communication issues, and common behaviors.
Studies show that ethnic patients may prefer to work with same-race caregivers, but more important by far is a caring person. Someone who is easy to talk to, listens carefully, is respectful, and takes patient concerns seriously.
Don't apply the golden rule. Learn how others want to be treated. We tend to think others want to be treated as we do. But what may be considered helpful, polite, and friendly care in one culture can be experienced as rude, thoughtless, and uninformed in another. Apply the platinum rule. Treat others as they want to be treated. When in doubt, be honest. Say, I want to be respectful of your culture. Can you explain why this is important to you? Let patients know you could make mistakes, and ask them to let you know if you violate their cultural beliefs. However, important information may still be withheld. Different ethnic groups have different rules about displaying respect and disclosing intimate information to strangers. For instance, Middle Eastern patients may not share information about themselves unless you do the same. Asian patients may agree with you to show respect without having any intention of following through with prescribed treatment. Listen carefully and stay receptive to important clues. Use short questions and comments. Avoid medical jargon and slang. Use basic words and sentences and repeat basic ideas. Speak slowly, not loudly. And paraphrase important points.
Never assume anything. When in doubt, ask questions to discover the patient's perception of the problem. Ask him to explain what he needs from you. Assess patient coping skills. What resources might he need to follow through with treatment?
Stay alert for body language or nonverbal cues. If you sense the patient has learned as much as he or she can deal with, stop. Offer to provide a list of important regimes to follow or arrange to talk later. If you sense you've offended or frightened him, apologize. Ask the patient for help in understanding what has bothered him or her. If she seems overwhelmed, ask if it would be helpful to have someone call to remind her when and how the medication should be taken. If she speaks limited English, use a translator, preferably the same gender as the patient. Direct questions to the patient. If you suspect she is withholding some important information or she doesn't understand, return to the subject and repeat it. Be sure the interpreter knows what you want. You may be wondering how we can possibly find the time to learn everything we need to know about different cultures. The simple answer is we can't, nor do we need to. We're not looking for a cookbook approach to multicultural care. Stereotyping patients is not the answer.
Remember, cultural competency is patient-centered care. Our relationship with the person is primary.
All people, no matter what
our country of origin,
want to feel that caregivers are
sensitive to our needs,
and that our personal values and beliefs
really count.
That's cultural competency, and it's just good health care.